church. Hey, you guys look great today. It's great to be here with you all. I sound funny? Just a little bit. All right. So I'm glad to be here with you today. I'm excited to bring a message. But before we get into any of that, we're about to start the Family Matters series next week. And I want to let you guys know that there is a family here who just celebrated 54 years. And I want to celebrate Harry and Miss Niva on 54 years of marriage in the back right here. So give them a, yes, stand up. These guys are wonderful people, wonderful servants of the Lord. I love them dearly. What an example that they have set for us on Family Matters. So next week, Pastor Rick is going to come and talk to us about Family Matters. But today, I want to talk a little bit about maybe a precursor. And the idea and concept that we have is I wanted you to leave here knowing how to love well. Harry and Niva have their anniversary, and I want to tell you guys, I'm celebrating July 27th. I celebrated a big anniversary myself. I can still remember the day. It was July 27th of 2013, a hot, steamy July morning. One of those days where you don't really want to get out of the air conditioner. And I had to go out. Amanda and Ella had a thing to do with the girls, some kind of girl event. And at this time, July 27th of 2013, I was driving an old red Toyota Camry that had leaky seals. And when it rained, the rain got in the car. And when the heat came down on that, it stunk something awful. And we had been having showers, and the rain came in and my car was stinking bad. Luke was almost 3 years old. I had been watching and waiting and saving and thinking, and I had a relationship at this point with Toyota Tundra pickup trucks. I saw them on the internet. I knew how much they cost. I knew what features they had. And on July 27, 2013, that was my day. I asked Luke, I said, Luke, do you want to go get a big truck? And he said yes, and that was all that it took. We went 50 miles from the house, and I took his car seat out of that old red Toyota Camry, and I put it in the big truck, and everybody knew that it wasn't going to come out again. And oh, how my truck shined. I loved her so well. We took her to see the family. We let people drive it if they got clearance, okay? I got every spot off every window, everything I picked up out of the carpet. I read the manual. I swore to myself, there's nothing ever going to happen to this truck. But as time goes on, things come up that take more priority than all those promises you make. And one day I went out and my truck, which was supposed to start when I wanted it to start, and was supposed to go where I wanted it to go and wasn't supposed to give me any trouble, had no power. And I opened the hood, and under the hood, there was a battery that was dead. But that wasn't the only problem. The terminals and the posts were so corroded, I couldn't even get it separated. Now, I'm just hard-headed enough to believe that I could fix anything, so I took a hammer, and I got my wrench. I had a ratchet. Everything short of a reciprocating saw I used before I finally cut the battery cables, replaced all of that stuff, put a new battery in, and swore it would never, ever happen again. And then about a month ago, in Tennessee, we pulled into the gas station, and when we went back out, my truck that was supposed to start and do the purpose that I had for it to do would not start. And so we called a mechanic, and we found a glorious mechanic in Tennessee. They brought a battery to the gas station for these people from Alabama. And when the man came up, I remember saying this. I said, I'm ashamed to open this hood up and let you see what's going on in here. What I want to tell you guys is that your family can be like a vehicle. It starts off beautiful. You're so in love. And then seems like things take priority over your family. And you don't do the preventive maintenance that you need. What I did to my truck on a good day was neglect. And on a bad day might be outright abuse. And if you don't do the preventive maintenance that you need, you may end up with an emergency repair. Keep that in mind about your relationship with your spouse, with your children, as we talk about today how to love well. Let's pray and then we'll get started. Dear Lord, thank you for today. God, I thank you for giving us the opportunity to gather here in your house. God, I thank you for the example that Jesus gave us about how to love. And I pray that you will just open our minds and hearts, that we may be receptive to your message, that we might find out something we need to do to be just a little bit better, a little more like you, and to love our family a little better than maybe we came in here doing. In Jesus' name, amen. John 15:12 on the top of your outline says this. It says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." Jesus said that right before he went to be crucified. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Now, he said this before his death, so I think he has to be referring to the time he walked on the earth and the way that he loved people while he was on earth. So today, I want to look at this statement, and I want to look at different ways that Jesus loved in the concept now, with no secrets, of the 5 love languages. We're going to be talking about those today. This is not new stuff. This is not my stuff. If you know the love languages, which I'm sure many of you do, consider this preventive maintenance. If you've never heard the love languages at all, man, I'm glad you're here. I hope that you leave here at least knowing what you think one of yours might be. So, love one another as I have loved you. The first thing that I see when I look in the Bible that Jesus did is he spent quality time with people. Point 1 is quality time. If you want to love people well, there are some people who are only going to know that you love them if you give them your most valuable resource. And let me tell you, it's time. It's the great leveler. We can't get any more of it. You can go make more money. Sometimes you can get more energy. I've started taking a new vitamin this week, so energy is coming up. But time, everybody has the same amount of time. You need to spend quality time with the people that you love. Jesus and his disciples, they walked around together, they ate together, they worked together. I'm thinking they probably fished together some. They lived together, they served together. They were always together. And after Jesus ascended into heaven, Acts 1:14 tells us that the disciples stayed together in the upper room in one accord. On the day of Pentecost, which is 50 days out, they were still together in one accord. They were together, spending time together. One of my favorite stories that illustrates the principle of quality time in the Bible comes from Luke chapter 10, verse 38. In Luke 10:38, we find Jesus in a house. Now it happened as they went, he entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she approached him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore tell her to help me." And Jesus said to her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her." We could spend days dissecting this. We see many different love languages at play here, but what Mary is doing is spending quality time with Jesus. And Jesus defends her spending quality time with him to Martha. So my question is to myself and to everyone here, do you spend quality time with Jesus? If we're saved, and I hope that you are, if not, we'll talk about that later. You can be saved today by accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior. We've signed up and said we want to spend eternity with Jesus. How do we show that today? Are we doing a 5 or 10 minute devotion in the morning? Or are we with him all day long? Jesus told us to abide in him. That means we're supposed to live in him all the time. And he said he wants to abide in us. And when that happens, there will be fruit. Abide, abide. We're supposed to abide in Christ and spend quality time with him. I don't know about you, but for me, I don't have the strength to do it at the end of the day. I have to get up and start early, and then all the rest of the day seems to go better. I'm more in tune with Jesus if I have an appointment with him in the morning. Not everyone's like that, I understand. But time is our most valuable, our most sacred resource, and it is amazing to me how much we have done to give ourselves more time. When you think about it, we have so much more time than we had back in the 80s. You may not believe that. We have the picture. I want to show you this picture. This is a great picture if it's coming out. Oh, look at this guy. Now, let me tell you guys what this is. This is a picture of little Dave Roper, and that item that I am sitting on is what we called a phone stand in Inslee, Alabama. And that was at Nana's house. And that thing that I am holding is a, believe it or not, telephone. Big black telephone, and the number to that telephone is 788-0251. I know that because I dialed it so many times. And the number I'm probably dialing from that phone is 787-1544. I know that because I dialed it so many times back to Mama's house. And here's the way you did it, kids. It had this dial on it, and you went 7, 8, 7, 1, 5, 3. Oh no, I got to start all over. It was supposed to be a 4. You had to hang up and start 7. I'm not going to make y'all go through all that again. Sometimes it could take a minute and a half to get a call out. Now, what we were doing there a lot of times on that phone though, you couldn't pick it up if Nana was waiting on a call. When you're waiting on a call, nobody can be on the phone. And if anyone calls, she would say hello, and if it's not the call she's waiting on, she would say, I'm waiting on a call, I have to let you go, and then it was over. Because you couldn't miss the call. There were no answering machines. There was no beep in, call waiting. I remember when that started, that was amazing. We didn't have to, we could talk on the phone while we were waiting on a call. We had all of our papers in order right there by the phone, and we would spend hours waiting on a call. We don't have to wait on a call anymore. We take the call with us. We don't have to sit on a little stand. We do whatever we want. So much time has been freed up just by that. Hey, but what about tape recorders? Anybody remember these things? About this big? And you would wait for your song to come on the radio, and then you would punch record, and you might miss the first couple of words because you didn't know it was coming on. We spent hours trying to wait on that song to come on so that we could have the song on our tape and play it whenever we wanted it, as long as we rewound it. Now, how long did we spend rewinding? Be kind, please rewind. You guys remember that at the video store? What even is a video store? We got it right here. We don't have to go to the video store. In 1986, I was kind of the nerdy kid. I got an encyclopedia. And that kept me from having to go to the library. Hours and days I spent at the library as a kid. We've got all of that right here. But distraction rules the day. This, you get your calls, you get your music, you get your Wikipedia, encyclopedia, but at what cost? I get a screen time report on Sunday morning during Sunday school. A couple weeks ago, it said I've spent 6 hours a day on my screen. And that's not a lot compared to some of you guys. 6 hours a day. If I can be connected with everything going on in New York, everything that's going on in China, my friend Charlie from high school who lives in Colorado, all right here, I've got to make a choice about whether or not that's more important than the people in the room with me. And a lot of times I think I make the wrong choice. And what I think I may be doing when I make that wrong choice is missing out on the good part. Jesus told Martha, don't miss out on the good part. And I'm going to tell you guys, don't miss out on the good part. Believe it or not, you have control over this thing. You could put it across the room, I think. You can give it a bedtime. There are people who build little beds for them. You put it in there and charge it. It goes in the kitchen. You can make it stay in bed a little longer in the morning. You don't have to be run by the phone. Martha in our story is so distracted by doing good things. Now she's serving. She's demonstrating what we're going to get to later, the acts of service, love language, but she misses out on the good part, which is quality time with Jesus. And the fact of the matter is, there is a trade-off for everything. If I'm spending 42 hours a week looking at my screen, that's 42 hours a week I'm not doing something else. And these didn't even exist 30 years ago. There's a 2018 survey of 1,000 elementary school students, and the results were, the kids said during a school day, weekday, they spent an average of 37 minutes of family time. 37 minutes. We have, I think, 1,400 something in the day. I get 6 hours on my phone. Am I missing the good part? There's a fella named Tim Urban, and he wrote an article called The Tail End. The principle of this article is that you may be on the tail end of opportunity that you have to do certain things. This may be the last few chances you have. Let me give you my wife Amanda as an example. She grew up in a house with her father. They were divorced, and she spent probably on average 300 days a year with her dad for 19 years. I'm not going to kill you with math, but that's about 5,700 days Amanda spent with her dad from the time she was born until 19. He's 65 now. If he lives to be 90, that's 25 years. We see him about once a month, 12 times a year times 25 years. We have maybe 300 more chances to see her dad versus 5,700 when she was a kid before she turned 19. I tell you that to tell you this, parents, if you've got kids in the house, you're not going to get this time back. When they leave, a lot of times they don't come back, and they're going to be on the tail end of when you're going to see them. Kids, if you've left the house and you've got parents at home, realize you may not have that many more chances to see them on this earth. Embrace quality time and show your people that you love them by spending quality, undistracted, completely attentive time with them. It's a great way to show love, and Jesus praised Mary for it here. She's not missing the good part that's not going to be taken away from her. You don't either. Number 2, I'm sure you guys may have heard the story of an old couple who had been married maybe some 40 years, went to marital counseling. And the lady told the counselor, he never even tells me he loves me. And the husband said, I told you that the day we married, and if anything changes, I'll let you know. Hey, you laugh, but do you tell your people that you love them enough? The people in your house need you to tell them that with your words. And they also need you to tell them good things about themselves. Good things that they can do, good things that they have done. How beautiful they are. You need to tell them. And it can be hard. If you're anything like me, I can go home and 99% of everything is 100% in place and right. And I will notice the one thing wrong. And that's what I choose to comment on. What does that do to the people in the house who've been working all day? We need to give words of affirmation. Jesus affirmed Mary to Martha in Luke chapter 10, but there's another example that I like even better in Mark chapter 14, verse 3. It says this, being in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at the table, a woman came having an alabaster flask of costly oil of spikenard, and she broke the flask and poured it on his head. But there were some who were indignant among themselves and said, why was this fragrant oil wasted? For it might have been sold for more than 300 denarii and given to the poor. And they criticized the woman sharply. But Jesus said, let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She's done a good work for me. For you have the poor with you always, and whenever you wish you may do them good. But me you do not have always. She's done what she could. She has come beforehand to anoint my body for burial. Assuredly, I say to you, this is it right here. Wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will be told as a memorial to her. John identifies this lady as Mary. Jesus said anytime that this gospel is preached in the whole world, what she's doing right now, we're going to talk about it. And you know what? Today we're talking about it. Think about what that did for Mary. Think about what that would do for your kids. Think about what that would do for your brothers and sisters and your spouse. I'm going to talk about the good things. Usually when I talk, I want to talk about the bad things. It's just something I can't get over. We're not supposed to talk about the bad things. We're supposed to lift people up. And the Bible is full of affirmations that God gives us. 1 Peter 2:9 tells us this: you're a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a special people who have been called out of darkness into God's marvelous light. Listen to that again. You are chosen, royal, you're holy, you're special, you're called. You are. The Bible also tells us in Romans 8:16 and 17, you're children of God. And if children, then you're heirs of God. And if you're heirs, then you're joint heirs with Christ. This is God looking at us and saying, hey, you're my kid. I can say a lot of things to my kids, but when I just say, hey, you're my kid, it means so much. It means I've got this. I don't want to do you any harm. I love you. I'm going to take care of you. You're special. It would kill me if I lost you. God is saying all that by saying that we're his children. We're his kids. What a wonderful word of affirmation that he gives us. Not only does the Bible affirm us, it also tells us that we should affirm others. Ephesians 4:29 is one of Pastor Danny's favorite verses. Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth except what is good and necessary for the edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. That gives you 4 levels you're supposed to go through before you say anything. And I just hope that my sermon meets that. It's got to be good, necessary, edifying. That means it has to feed and give value. And then it has to be gracious. There would be a whole lot less talking if we went through those steps every time before we said something. Psalm 19:14, let the words of my mouth and meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord. And finally, Proverbs 18:21 tells us that death and life are in the power of the tongue. Does your tongue bring death or life to your family? You have that power. How do I fix it, though? It's so hard to get good things to come out of my mouth sometimes. What I think the Bible tells us, Jesus says in Matthew 12, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Whatever your heart's full of, that's what you're going to speak. And if you're full of negativity and stress and worry and fear and concern, if you're a perfectionist and that's in your heart, it's going to come out. But if we will do what Philippians 4:8 says, and whatever is true, noble, pure, lovely, of good report, anything that has any virtue and anything that's praiseworthy, meditate on these things. Let me say that again. Whatever is true, noble, just, pure, lovely, of good report, anything of any virtue and anything that's praiseworthy. If you will meditate on that about the people around you, starting by the people under your roof and then expanding outward, you will have good things to say because you'll be thinking good things about them all the time. We need to tell our people good things to show them that we love them. There's some people who aren't going to believe that you love them unless you tell them good stuff about themselves. My wife is one, and I struggle. I asked her the other day, I said, I could work 5 hours busting my tail doing stuff for you, because I'm an acts of service guy. We'll talk about that later. I said, would that show me, would you believe that those 5 hours were more important than one compliment? And she said, give me the compliment. Because that's what she hears. Very important. Third, receiving gifts. Jesus gave a lot of gifts while he was on the earth. There's a lot of passages that we have that we're going to talk about, but a gift is a physical symbol of love. Physical symbol of love. Some people need to get a gift to believe that you love them. And that way they can sit it on the counter and they can look at it and say, my baby went out and spent his time and money and effort and energy and was thinking about me while he wasn't here. That's my gift of how much he loves me. Jesus gave gifts all the time, but he didn't really go to the store. Let me just tell you, there's a lot of good gifts that don't come from the store. You can give a lot of gifts that don't come from the store. In Matthew 14, Jesus gave the gift of food to 5,000 people. In Matthew 15, Jesus gave the gift of food to another 4,000 people. He didn't have to go to the store. He healed many people all the time, giving gifts. John 2 is one of my favorites. Just a good, interesting story. It's where they're at the marriage and they run out of wine, and Jesus' mother, in John 2, verse 3, when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. And Jesus said to her, woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. Now that's a strange thing for Jesus to say, but I love what Mary does even more in the next verse. She doesn't even acknowledge the comment. She tells the servants, whatever he says, you do it. Like it's gonna happen. Just read that sometime this week and think about this interaction of Jesus and his mom. But what happens is they fill up water pots, and then when they pull it out, it's wine, the servants do. They take it to the chief of the feast, and he doesn't know how it happened, but he calls the bridegroom in and says, why did you save the good stuff for the end? You're supposed to pull us out at the beginning. The bridegroom and the chief of the feast, they didn't know how it happened. But if you read in your Bible in verse 9, in parentheses, it says, but the servants who had drawn the water out knew. If I'm a servant and I see this, I'm going to have to get a little bottle of that to set on my counter to say, this is how much love Jesus showed the people at that wedding. This is how powerful Jesus is. The servants are the people that I love to see in this story about Jesus giving that gift. My favorite gift that Jesus gave was the gift of an ear. You see this in all 4 accounts of the Gospels. You see it in Matthew 26. You see it in Mark 14. It says that Jesus was going to be arrested, and one of the people who was arresting him, his ear got cut off. Okay? If you read in John, John names names and says it was Simon Peter, and Malchus is the one who cut the ear off. And if you read in Luke, the doctor, Luke tells us that Jesus healed Malchus's ear. He gave him the gift of an ear. Malchus is an intriguing guy to me, because when I think about all the rest of his life, he touched his ear and was like, this was gone and now it's back, and Jesus did it, and then we arrested him and killed him. I would like to think that if Jesus healed my ear, there would be nothing that stood in my way. But you know what? He's healed a lot more than an ear for me. And is there anything that stands in my way from this gift of eternal life of salvation that he's given me at no cost to me? Do I take a stand for Jesus, or am I going to keep going on and getting along? He shows he loves us by gifts. A gift is something that's given without payment. A gift is something that you cannot earn. My boy Luke tells me this: a gift is not a reward or a prize that you win. To have a gift, there must be a giver. So when your people need to receive gifts, you give them something with no ties, no strings attached, no anything. It's just a gift. It's theirs. And they're going to look at it and think about how much you love them and how much you care about them. Because people who speak the receiving gifts love language, it's the thought that counts. But there's limits about how much the thought can count. I'll tell you guys a story about one day when the thought didn't count. Take you back to December of 2010. I was a young man. We had a 2-month-old. We had a 2-year-old, so we had more time than we could shake a stick at. And I had what I now believe is the flu. I had a fever of 102 or so degrees, depending on when we measured it. And I had this for like 10 days. And I had a lot of things I was working hard to get finished so I didn't have to carry it over through Christmas, so I wouldn't have to think about it. So I would not go to the doctor. And I just kept eating the vitamins and the NyQuil and the whatever, and I didn't get well. And what a fever of 102 or 3 will do untreated over a week. It will eat away at your brain capacity. That's what I say. Now we throw in on top of the stress of Christmas and the stress of work that my beautiful wife, the mother of my children, had a milestone birthday coming up on December the 10th. And I went to all of the places in my insanity where you go to look for a great 30th birthday present. I went to Walmart and Target. I went to Penny's, and I may have gone to the thrift store, and I could not come up with the perfect gift for my lady. Her birthday came and went, and I didn't have a present. And the stress mounted even more. I had nothing but a promise that I was going to get her a present. And then on December 13th, I remember the day, I called her into the kitchen, and there beside me, unwrapped, was her gift, a shiny black plastic garbage can. I'm not kidding. And you can laugh, she knows. Now, thank goodness she is not a receiving gifts person. And these are the kind of stories that you just want to forget. But thank goodness I have a sister-in-law who will not let things die. This garbage can was horrible. It didn't even work right. So about 5 years later, Amanda's sister comes in on Christmas with a great big wrapped cylinder. And we threw the old garbage can away. I tell you that just so maybe you'll have in your mind, you do need to put some thought into the gifts. You don't have to get anything from the store. Looking back, I wish I had made her something. Just give a gift to the people you love, especially if their love language is receiving gifts. Number 4, physical touch. My family isn't a family of touchers. We do a little here, a little there. I've been talking about this with my kids some, and I threatened them that I might start touching them a little more. To which one of my children replied, no, really, I'm just good with my one hug a day. Jesus used touch when he healed people. In Mark chapter 7, verse 31, we see Jesus by the Sea of Galilee. A deaf man with a speech impediment comes up to him, and they beg Jesus to put his hands on him. They don't beg him to heal him, they beg him to put his hands on him. And Jesus took the man aside. Read this now. He put his fingers in his ears, spit and touched his tongue, and said, "Ephathia," which means be opened. Jesus touched people in a way that he was going to be in hot water if it didn't work, right? The next chapter, Mark chapter 8, in Bethsaida, they bring a blind man to him and ask him to touch the blind man. Jesus spits in his eyes and touches him. He's healed. In Luke 18, they bring infants to him so that he can touch them. In Luke 8:45, when Jesus is on the way to Jairus' house to heal Jairus' daughter, he feels a tug on his robe. And there's a woman who had had a flow of blood for 12 years who reached out and touched him. And he asked his disciples, "Who touched me?" And the disciples said, "You're in a big crowd. How are we going to know who touched you?" And Jesus said, no, somebody touched me. Because I felt the power go out of me. Let me tell you guys, whether you're touchers or not, there is power in intentional physical touch. People need to be touched. I want to make you, Jesus didn't have to touch people to heal them. Know that. Just a word from Jesus can heal any sickness, raise the dead to life. We see that with Lazarus. Can create the whole world. He didn't have to touch people, but he chose to touch people. And I think it just shows that some people need to be touched to feel loved. We see it other places in the Bible. Go Old Testament touching on you. Genesis 24 and Genesis 47. We see this 2 times, so it wasn't an isolated incident. In Genesis 24, Abraham called his servant in to go get Isaac a wife, and he said, put your hand under my thigh and promise me that you're going to go get him a wife. We see the same thing with Jacob and Joseph. Jacob tells Joseph, put your hand under my thigh and promise me you won't bury me in Egypt. So the way that they affirmed a covenant in the Old Testament was not a written contract. It was this very intimate physical touch. Other examples in the Bible, I want to tell you guys about a story of Randy. My buddy Randy, we used to go to church together. And Randy was the kind of guy that you would want to take to a Viking party. Randy didn't get cold. Randy didn't wear a jacket. He didn't have to have a jacket. He had a natural jacket of hair all up and down his arm, and on his chest, and on his back. A manly man. Like if we're picking sides, I'm going to get Randy, and then we'll see what happens. Now, I used to be different than I am now, so I picked Randy and decided that I would mess with him. So we would be sitting at business meetings at church, and I would slide Randy a note that said 1 Thessalonians 5:26. Greet all the brethren with a holy kiss. And Randy looked at me and said, I'm not kissing you, Dave. And I said, I could kiss you whether you kiss me or not. I've changed. I imagine this holy kiss is like the old gangster movies. Hey, Vito, how you been doing? It's been so long since I seen you. And they kiss Vito right before they kill him, poor Vito. But you're supposed to greet one another with touching. I don't make sure the kiss is holy. Because there are examples in the Bible where a kiss is used to deceive. And make sure that you're ready for what you ask for. Because we didn't go to church with Randy forever. We changed and went to a different church. And Amanda was working on the fall festival in the kitchen. And there was a group of old men that were out working, getting the lawn cleaned up for the fall festival. And some of them came in, and one of them was there, and Amanda said, thank you so much for helping out with the fall festival. And this man, who I later found out was Citizen of the Year in the town where we lived, grabbed her by her cheeks and said, you're welcome, and put one right on her lips right there in church. And I learned about Romans 16:16. It's not just the brethren. It says greet everyone with a holy kiss. But I don't really advise that here. But things can come back to you. There's closeness in touch. We need to touch. The experts tells us that babies in the hospital, little babies have to be touched. When my boy Luke was born, I was in the lobby handing out the cigars. Just kidding. I was there, and he had a thing in his lungs. I don't remember what it was, but it was a thing in his lungs, like snot or something, and they would not take him to mama. And she had had surgery, and she could not go and get him. And she looked at me and said, Dave, you're going to hold that baby. You're going to hold him skin to skin. So here I go, following the little nurse who has my newborn baby. And we go down to the NICU, and there are people there from not in the hospital looking through the window at their babies. And I followed the nurse to the door, and I said, ma'am, I'm going to have to go in there. And she said, okay. And I got in, and I was like, okay. I told her, I said, I'm going to have to hold that baby. And she said, okay. And I said, I'm going to have to take my shirt off. And she said, okay. So here I am at Brookwood Hospital on display at the NICU, holding my boy skin to skin while everybody's watching. And look at him now. People need to be touched. There's intimacy in touch. There's care in touch. There's love and concern in touch. And what I hate, especially with COVID, is that we're moving more and more into a touchless society. We've gone from hands under the thigh and hugs and kisses to handshakes to fist bumps. And I'm sure that in the next couple of years, there's going to be a virtual handshake show up on my phone where I don't have to touch nobody. Touch your family. Touch your wife, your husband, your kids, your brothers and sisters, your people at church, even Aunt Bertha, whoever that may be. Touch your people. Reach out and touch someone, as AT&T would tell us. Number 5, as the worship team kind of gets ready and all. Acts of service. This is the 5th love language. In Mark chapter 10, verse 43 through 45, we see James and John come up and tell Jesus, we'd like to sit on your right and left hand. And Jesus tells them, whoever desires to be great is going to be your servant. Whoever wants to be first is going to be slave of all. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, a servant is someone who performs duties for another person. That's what a servant is. They see a need and they go and do it. If you see a need and you find someone to do it, I appreciate that. That's awesome. But who's the servant? That's the way I'm keyed anyway. I speak acts of service. If you see a need, just go do it. See, Jesus didn't come to help people find an answer. He came to be the answer. He came to be the service. He came to show us the perfect servant. And he did that on earth. But servant carries a bad connotation these days. Anybody's kids have the nerve to say, you think I'm some kind of servant? Your kids don't say good. Kids have gotten better. Some do, yeah. We got a word from the audience on that. Thank you. I'm not your slave. What? So, yes, you are. That's what the Bible says. We're supposed to be servants. Serve others. It makes you great. It makes you first. Kids, you ever look around at the sky and the stars and you say, what am I doing here? What is my purpose in life? Adults, maybe you all do that too. Let me help you. Serve others. That's what we're here for. And if you're not doing it, you're missing the point. You might be missing some of that good part. 1 Peter 4:10 tells us this. As each has received a gift, let him minister it to one another as a good steward of the manifold grace of God. You're supposed to use your gift. God gives us gifts to serve other people. If you don't know your gift, I can help you learn your gift. My gift is teaching. I would love to help you learn your gift. That's what I'm supposed to do. But if you don't know it, I can tell you about a couple of pretty good gifts. Aren't hands amazing? If you don't know what to give somebody, start by giving them a hand. They need it. I had somebody give me a hand this week at church. Scott, 95-degree heat, out there serving. It was awesome. Chuck, he sits in the back. He brings me a gift every Sunday morning, a bottle of Gatorade. He's serving me by giving me a gift. He told me today it's not that big of a deal. Man, it is. He brings it every week. And sometimes I pile them up in the fridge and wait till it gets hot in the winter. But sometimes I drink it through the week and I'm like, man, Chuck brought me this gift. He served me. You can serve other people. What you got to do, though, you can't have begrudging service. You don't need to have service that has expectation of return service. You got to change your mind. You got to start seeing work that needs to be done instead of a burden as an opportunity to show love. Sink full of dishes, dirty kitchen floor, pile of laundry, opportunities to serve. You might say, well, that's what my wife does. Not today. knee-high grass, a dirty garage, hedges that need trimming, oil that needs changing, a car that needs washing. My husband takes care of that. Not this week. I'm going to serve. Shall I continue? Dinner cooking, kids scrubbing, dog walking, sink unclogging, toilet plunging, diaper changing, floor mopping, touch-up painting, ceiling fan dusting, leaf blowing, weed killing, light bulb changing, trash taking, baseboard dusting, fridge cleaning out, carpet vacuuming, filling up the car with gas, or something as simple as walking downstairs to get her a cup of coffee so she doesn't have to get up. Which I did immediately after I wrote that list, but I was a minute too late and she was already done. See jobs as opportunities. Don't expect recognition. Ask not what your family and your friends and your loved ones and your church can do for you. Ask what you can do for them. Except, don't ask. Just do it. Because if you ask someone who speaks acts of service as their love language, if they need help, they don't. Just do it. If you go start something that needs to be done, they probably won't stop you. But if you ask, it's something about pride. We can't admit it. Philippians 2:4 says, let each one look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. Show love for your family, your wife, your husband, your kids, your friends, your neighbors, your family at church. By doing hard things, by doing easy things, by doing things you don't think have any significance. You never know. So in conclusion, Jesus told us to love one another as he has loved us. What I want you to know about these love languages, these ways to show love, is that if I just go out and do acts of service when someone needs to be touched, we're speaking different languages. If I had spoken, and I couldn't do this whole message in Italian, it would have been fairly unmeaningful to all of you. Spanish, maybe a little more, but we chose English because I want to speak your language. I know that's what you understand. And when Jesus said to love one another the way that he loves us, what I think that the examples we see in the Bible are, he spent enough time to determine how the people needed to be treated to feel loved. He identified their language, and then he took the time and effort to learn that language and go and do it. And that's what we're supposed to do, to love one another the way that he loved us. Jesus wrapped it up after John 15:12 is John 15:13. He says this, greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. He said that, and then he went and did it. That makes that sink full of dishes not seem quite so daunting. It makes that trying to come up with something positive to say to somebody not seem quite so hard. If I were to survey you guys, everybody would tell me I believe that you would lay down your life for your family. But what about the little stuff that's not quite that drastic? Are you willing to do that so that you can love well?